Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Franchise Tag. I am Gareth Smith, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. We're talking to a three-time Pro Bowler, linebacker, Shawne Merriman. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for your time today. Do truly appreciate it. Obviously, you're someone who's had a hell of a career, as mentioned, 3 times Pro Bowler, Defensive Rookie of the Year. These things are not something that people get very easily. So do you want to talk us through, obviously, your first year at the Chargers, you got a Defensive Rookie of the Year. What was so special about that season for you?
It's funny. When I was drafted, I was, at the time, the youngest drafted NFL player ever. I was still 20 years old. I didn't look it, but, I was 20 years old. And, I made a statement early, and I made a statement against some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I had 3 sacks against Peyton Manning, right? And when you start having games like that early on, like, people pay attention. And I think at that point, me having a nickname like Lights Out, right?
Yeah.
That everyone knew, and then going out there playing on national TV where everybody's seeing like this whole Lights Out thing live. It really put me on the map, man. So I was fortunate. I was all pro, defensive rookie of the year, and one of 2 rookies to go to the Pro Bowl, that year. And so that you can't ask for more than that to start out the gate that way.
And obviously you carried on, obviously being this lights out player in effect by the 3 Pro Bowls, as mentioned. These are accolades that not every player, some players are lucky to get 1 in their career. You've got 3. How much does that say to obviously the hard work and commitment you put into it, and obviously the talent that you had?
I was explaining to someone the other day, just the levels of it. Everybody in the NFL is good. Regardless of what people think back home, and they saying, "Oh, that guy that's sitting on the bench is not playing as much. He's a bum. He's not good." Let me tell you, that second and third string guy on the bench is one of the most athletic people you've ever met before in your life. It's just the guys as starters, and then your Pro Bowlers and your All Pros. The level of what these guys and these players can do is just unheard of, right? Just so talented, so strong, so fast, so athletic, so explosive, that now you start to climb up the ladder to see the elite of the elite, man. So I was fortunate to be considered, one of the best, if not the best, of what I did at my times where I played, and I'm really appreciative of that.
And obviously, you look at the game now, and obviously, it seems like it's much, much harder now to be a defender than it has ever been. Obviously, the quarterbacks have always been protected a little bit. Nowadays, it seems even harder. How much difficult do you think it would be to be playing your style of football in the game today?
I couldn't play. I mean, I just, and it's not. I could play, but I don't think I would have as much fun and passion, right? Because I went out there to play hard and play the game the way it's supposed to be played. And I think that if I went out there playing, thinking about penalties and fines, it would take away a little bit from what I wanted to do. But the game is still physical, right? Mm-hmm. The game is still a very physical game. They just call the game differently, right? More flags, more penalties, more fines. So, but the game is still very physical. So that's where I would have a problem with playing today, because I don't think a nickname like Lights Out is going to sit well with, how the NFL is played today.
No, I think there's a lot of players, like, you look back at, obviously my favorite player growing up was obviously Weapon X. That guy wouldn't be able to play in the game today. Just some of his leaps that he used to do on players, they're going to be flagged left, right, and centre. So players like that obviously just aren't going to be able to play, unfortunately, in the current way it's going. But one thing that I think is definitely an improvement at the moment is the growth of this game internationally. This game has gone from being a game that is played in the United States for people in the United States to being a game now that is watched by millions around the world. How pleased are you to see the growth of the game compared to what you had when you played?
I think the NFL, they're smart and how they kind of roll the game out internationally. And they had distribution where you can watch the games out there for years.
Mm-hmm.
And they were starting to go have, and maybe you guys seen this, where they start set up just advertising, and you start seeing signs for years about the NFL. They're starting to have little camps. They started to send players overseas to get acquainted with the fan base. So they just did it the right way, and they're so smart in the forward thinking of how the game is going to be. It's going to grow, and the only way for the game to get as big, like it's football here in the States, right? In the U.S., it's number one, not even close.
Yeah.
There's no close second. And worldly and globally, it's soccer, right? Soccer is the global sport, but the NFL has an opportunity to keep rolling out over these next 5 and 10 and 15 years, where I don't think it'll be bigger than soccer globally, but I think it'll be watched. Quite a bit like soccer. Just, soccer's just too big globally to catch them, but the NFL can be a close second. Absolutely.
What's interesting, obviously, the growth of the international players as well. I think obviously the poster boy for the international players is Jordan Mailata, this rugby boy who never played a college game in his life before, comes out and becomes one of the best tackles in the game. Like, just shows that the talent is there worldwide. You look at the college game, and obviously the college, I think, something that us Brits find amazing, the attendances at what is in effect student athletes. Like that blows, as a college rugby player myself here, that blows my mind how many people turn up to watch your games. We were lucky to get anyone. But when you look at the growth for the international players who are now going over and getting that education in the United States, getting those scholarships to play in D1 schools, that's becoming the norm now. Whereas 5 years ago, that would be almost unheard of. So it shows they're growing the game internationally that way. That's the way to get the players in, is get them into the colleges and experience it that way. Do you wish it was something you could have experienced? A lot more of these international games, traveled with your team over to Australia, Brazil, Mexico, UK, Spain, Germany, just to name a few.
Yeah, and for me, I spent every off season. I used to go to Germany, and I would go to south of France and all these places. All over South America and Central America. I spend a lot of time during the off seasons. But I have friends that play their version of football, which is soccer, right out there. So I would go visit them all the time. So I would have loved to got an opportunity. And the crazy part is that I would go some places in like Germany or Bonn, Cologne, or Frankfurt, or Dusseldorf. I mean, I'll go to certain places and they'll know who I am. They'll have and they would know who I am. So I can only imagine what the game would be like if I was playing today. I was sitting at a coffee shop a couple of years ago in Dusseldorf, Germany, and guy came over and he looked at me and he thought I was an MMA fighter at first. And he said, "No, you're Lights Out. You're the Lights Out guy." And he knew who I was. And I was at a coffee shop in Dusseldorf. Same thing, going to Hamburg, and just Nice. I can only imagine what the game would be like for me if I played today, right? With all the international stuff. But again, I'm happy for the younger guys because they get a chance to experience what it's like to be an international known athlete, and not just a US based athlete anymore.
And the good thing is, obviously, defenders still to this day do get a lot of love. Fans love a good defender, whether it be someone like Micah Parsons, who obviously has gone on to be the guy who hasn't half got paid. To be the highest paid non-quarterback is always an accolade that he's a guy. Would you say he's deserved the money he has got this season?
Yeah, for sure. Because he's a generational player. There's not a lot of Micah Parsons just sitting around, right? And his first game with Green Bay, you saw exactly how good he was. He got a sack his first game there, and so he 100% deserved that money. And if it wasn't Green Bay, somebody was going to pay him a new contract.
Well, those rumors of Philly were also hovering around, and there was no way Jerry Jones was doing that deal. I know he makes some silly moves, does Jerry, but there's no way he trades Micah to the Eagles. Like, that would have been the trade of the century if he'd have done that, and he might have actually been chased out of Dallas for that trade. But yeah, Obviously, we've talked, the growth of the game internationally. It looks like it's going to become a more and more regular thing. There's even Roger Goodell talking about it becoming almost a weekly thing, a different game in a different country every single week. Where do you think that, obviously, you're someone who's got to experience, where do you think they should put a game? If it was down to you and you were told, I want to go, where would you want to be sent?
God, that's a good question. I think that they should put a team in London. I think they should do an expansion and have a team in London at some point in time. I think a team in London or Mexico City or just something outside the U.S. I think will really grow, really grow the sport if people feel like they got their own, because that's why soccer is so big globally, because people feel like they root for their country, they root for their team. That's why it's so big. I think if the NFL put a team in London or Mexico City or something like that, I believe that it becomes their own and it can really expand the game.
And it's interesting, obviously, see, because obviously you are seeing more Jags fans over here year on year. They've still not become the most popular team in the UK. A lot of that's still down to the Bears and Dolphins, which think that's obviously historical when you think of the Bears in the 80s and the likes of the Fridge and all those kind of players. People still remember those guys. And Dan Marino and the Dolphins, I think, will always be immortal in the game, no matter how. So the Brits always, and I think the problem they've always had is getting Brits away from the team they've grew up supporting. Like I've mentioned, I'm an Eagles fan. There's no way I'm changing for another team, but it's getting those next generation of fans through the likes of flag football, through all that kind of stuff, is how potentially you can get them to grow. So it is kind of interesting to see. Obviously, I'd love a franchise over here, just because it means I get to go watch more games. Selfishly, I do appreciate. But obviously, the aim of every fan over here and worldwide is to go over to experience a game in the States. Obviously, you're someone who's played in the college game as well. And college football fandom is growing over here, but it's not anywhere near as big as the NFL fan base over here. How much would you encourage a Brit to go and experience one of those D1 colleges on game day? How much would you recommend that to the Brits?
You're seeing I'm wearing my University of Maryland shirt today where I went to school. But there's nothing like going to a SEC game, a Georgia or an Alabama, a big Ohio State or Michigan game or a Penn State game. I mean, it's a different level of it's very pure and raw. Like you get your school spirit. It's a different feel, right? You go to an NFL game, you got your Chiefs fans, you got your Dallas Cowboys fans, but when you get to the college level, you got the students, you have the student section, you got people that went to that school and graduated 20 years ago and now coming back and now they're sitting like it's a different feel. You got a different set of pride for that. So it's going to happen. I believe it's in the works. So it's already happened about college games happening overseas. I mean,
they've had a Dublin Classic the last few years and Wembley, London's getting a game next year. Arizona State's coming over. I can't remember who they're playing, but Arizona State coming over for a game. So obviously we get to experience it. The Dublin Classic games are always good atmosphere. I went to the Florida State one versus Georgia Tech last year, and something like 20,000 people came over from Tallahassee, which is just crazy. It just shows the fanatical nature of those college fans, which was amazing to see. So obviously we are getting to experience a college game here in London in the UK, which obviously cannot wait for. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about your old teams. Obviously, the LA Chargers, as they now are known, are obviously 4-2 coming into the season, but I don't think they're doing as well as some people probably thought they would be doing. What is your assessment on the Chargers at this point in the season?
It's unfortunate that they had so many injuries, right? I mean, the season looked so promising, and you had your starting left tackle to go down, who probably one or two best tackles in the NFL. You got Joe Alt that moved from right tackle to left tackle. He got hurt, right? You got both your running backs hurt. You got your star pass rusher, Khalil Mack, to go down. It is unprecedented. We haven't seen anything like this before, right? And they found a way to go out and beat Miami with what they had, and so that's a plus. But I think if they can get by these next few weeks, right? They got the Colts on Sunday, which is going to be a big game for them. If they can get by these next few weeks, get everybody back healthy again, I think that they can be right back on track for the rest of the season. But they have to go out and great job beating Miami. They got to find a way to win against the Colts. If they win against the Colts, I think they get Joe Alt back and a couple other guys are back. And so that's going to be a big deal.
And obviously you mentioned the Colts, who I think have surprised a lot of people this year with Daniel Jones and that offense. How surprised have they been for you? Yeah,
and it's funny. You talking about your favorite team, and the Eagles. Saquon Barkley leaves the Giants. He has success with Philly, with the Eagles, and then you had Daniel Jones leave there, and now he's going to go line it up for the Colts. So I don't know, maybe something going on out there with the Giants that we don't know about. But I'm surprised. Daniel Jones looked like a completely different player than he was in New York. I mean, it's a complete 180, and that happens a lot with players in general. Sometimes it's coaching, sometimes it's a team and ownership, sometimes it's the front office. But you can't really put a finger on why a guy goes here and goes there and have a completely different career. You don't know. But yeah, the Chargers, they got to go out and get a win this weekend.
And obviously you mentioned, it seems to be quarterbacks who've been in New York seem to be like, when you look at, obviously Geno Smith, obviously when he left, he became better. You look at the likes of Sam Darnold, he left, obviously he got better. So it just seems to be, I don't know if it's the pressure keg of New York, the press in New York, obviously it's a big market. And if you don't hit the ground running, it can be quite an oppressive market a little bit. So you do wonder there's an element of that. It's getting out of New York to these other places where it's quite not as media heavy, whether that has anything to do with some of these transitions you're seeing from some of these guys. Your Bills, as well as another team you play for, started off like a freight train this year, 4-0, lost the last two. How important is this bye week for them?
It couldn't come at a better time. They're also banged up. I think they needed a reset too, because sometimes, and they should have won these games, these last two games. They had a chance of winning, but you want to almost pause the bad stuff that's happening, right? Give it a break, let everybody go and regroup. Get healthy again, and then get back at it. Because what happens is you have these hangovers. Right, you lose a couple of games before you know it. Everybody's being negative. Nobody, the media, the fans, everyone's coming down on you. You're trying to fight them off. So I think right now for the Bills, it's the best thing that could have happened. And also, they may want to go look back at some of the players that are not performing well. Some of the guys, like now you have time to make changes, and I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see some guys who were playing before who are not playing well. They're not going to be playing as much. I think that's what's going to happen with the Bills, and they need a total reset, and they got it.
And obviously, these resets can happen at the moment. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, I'm an Eagles fan. They were 2-2 before their bye, and then they just literally went on a tear the rest of the season and didn't drop a game again, other than one game where Jalen got hurt. So obviously these bye weeks can be so critical as long as they use them wisely, which not every team does, but with Josh Allen and players like that, you've obviously got to think that they will get this right, particularly with the coach as well. Hell of a head coach they've got over there. So you would like to think they would get this right. Obviously, I'd be remiss though if we didn't also talk about life for you after football. Obviously, Lights Out is not just your nickname from when you played. It's also your MMA promotion that you've set up, which set up 2019, wasn't it? You set it up?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a bit more about the promotion and obviously how much it's grown from that start?
Yeah, so I started training MMA back in the mid-2000s with Randy Couture and Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell. I was around a lot of these guys then. So I've always been around it. But when I retired, I got more into the business side of it and production and TV and broadcasting and stuff like that. So I ended up launching Lights Out Xtreme Fighting, my MMA organization, which, we're one of the fastest growing in the States right now. And, just announced a deal with UFC. We're UFC Fight Pass now as well. And we Footbal, we got some other publications, some other streaming services we're on as well. And then we got a big fight coming up Saturday, November 1st in Long Beach, and it'll be live on my streaming service, Lights Out Sports TV, which you guys can download any smart TV, iOS and Android. It's all the way out. It's huge out there as well, because a lot of MMA fighters that we get trying to come fight for us from over there as well. So make sure you download Lights Out Sports TV, completely free. But we got a massive fight November 1st. Renato and Grant Neal, these guys are going to go at it. Who else on this card? Cole Lauren, who I think is UFC bound in a couple fights. Drake Flores on this card as well. So we're pretty stacked up. And the cool thing is for us, which I've always appreciated, is that seeing these guys get an opportunity to go to the UFC. Yeah. Over this past month and a half, we've had 2 guys that fight for Dana White Contender Series, and we had the other 2 that actually fought in the UFC in the past month and a half. And so we love putting these guys in position to have that opportunity. We'll get there one day where we can keep them longer. But man, if you got an opportunity to go there, go. We want you to have that, and we know we got the next up and coming superstars of the sport. That's what's important to me, is grow these superstars up. If they got an opportunity to go to UFC, congratulations, right? We can't afford you no more. You cost too much money. So go get your money somewhere else. But we love having these next up and coming superstars fight for Lights Out Xtreme Fighting.
And obviously, MMA itself hasn't half grown. Obviously, you mentioned obviously Dana White has obviously been instrumental in the growth of MMA. The fact that the viewerships these days, your rivalry in boxing, some big boxing pay-per-views in regards to viewership, and in fact, in some cases, surpassing what would be heavyweight fight viewerships. How proud are you of your involvement in the growth of this and the growth of MMA?
To be honest, I was at the Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture fight in 2005. So to see that the business has gone and the sport has gone globally, I'm almost excited because I'm in it at the right time, right? Like UFC is who they are. Their UFC is always going to be the UFC. But we have some things we're building at Lights Out Xtreme Fighting that we want to separate ourselves a little bit and try out, when it comes to tech and different verticals. We got, chips in the gloves with shot tracker that can measure speed and G-force. That's coming. AI sponsorship, that we just introduced a few weeks ago. And we got something massive coming again that we're going to announce here as far as a potential distribution partner. We're going to be seen all over the world. And again, it's the right time for us. We're doing it the right way. Grow these up and coming superstars, and hopefully one day we'll be as global. That's the goal. So,
no, obviously, thank you so much for your time. So obviously, make sure you do check it out. Obviously, upcoming MMA is obviously very popular over in the UK. I'm from Liverpool, and obviously we've got quite a well-known star in MMA ourselves these days, and Paddy the Baddy. And we also have Molly Meatball, who's gone to boxing these days, but obviously she was heavily involved. So MMA is massively popular over here in the UK, so make sure you do check it out. But obviously, Shawne, thank you so much for your time today. Huge honor to talk to yourself, and truly grateful to speak to you.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And obviously, thank you everyone for watching at home. We'll be back again soon with another very special guest.